And welcome back, everybody, to another Friday Q&A slash hangout. I'm your host, Dave Huerta. Thank you so much for joining us. And wow, man, the first week without football. It's terrible. It's awful. I'm depressed. I'm sad. I'm lonely. um, no, it's been sorry, my mic is acting up here. Let me know if you can hear me, but yeah, man. And David, what's going on, my dude? Hello, hello. But yeah, the first week without football, it is weird. Like this season felt like it took forever in a great way, and I think that's what happens when you basically try to watch every possible game you can, and it basically just takes over your life. But like I said, in a great way. So yeah, so first week without football, it's dark, man. It's cold. Right now, it is snowing where I'm living. It's been snowing the last couple of days. It has been awful to drive in. So it's nice to be just hanging out here at my house with you guys on Valentine's Day. How is your Valentine's Day going? David, you're in the chat, man. How's your Valentine's Day going? How's everybody? Any plans for either this weekend? What's going on? Let me know. And on that beautiful note of Valentine's Day, I thought it was only fitting that the lights would match the day. So there we go. All right. So that we got that taken care of. Okay. So while we're waiting for people to kind of bounce in here, thank you so much for joining me, especially on a Friday. It's crazy, but thank you. And David will walk the dog. Oh, Pupper. Hey, there we go. Gotta take those good boys or good girls for a walk as well, man. No plans. That's actually good, man. Sometimes having no plans, it's even better, man. Just staying home, relaxing, doing your thing. Some of my best days are the days that I do not have a plan. And thank you for the compliment. There we go. Hey, man, we got no teams today, but we do have love in the air. So we gotta shout out Valentine's Day here with the lights. All right. So, first topic that we're going to talk about today is a little bit of free agency. Don't worry, I'm not going to run through the entire list of, 100 plus players. We're going to do anywhere between 5 to like maybe 7 that we're going to talk about here. And there's going to be some that I'm going to be able to talk a little bit more in length than others, but I thought these were the players that, in my head, you could either get the most value out of, getting a 1-2 year contract, or potentially these are just going to be very newsworthy, noteworthy players that are wherever they land. It's going to be a big topic, not only initially, but potentially well into the season, and we're going to see how they perform. And I even kind of let it in with the announcement a couple hours ago. Aaron Rodgers will be one of those players that we will talk about. Obviously, he is leaving the Jets, but more on that in a little bit. But the first player that I do want to talk about, and this is going to be somebody that's going to be very familiar to Packer fans, and this one is the only Packer that we're actually going to talk about today. Once again, I might do a free agency video in a few weeks as we get closer to free agency, but this one is just more of like looking ahead a little bit here. These guys are either going to be once again, guys that we're going to be talking about throughout until free agency, or these could be players that we could easily see re-signing with their teams pretty soon here. And this is going to be one of them, and that is going to be center Josh Myers, the man out of Ohio State, just finished up his 4th year, second round pick for the Packers. This is there's a lot of mixed feelings with Josh as a player. If you're a Packers fan, he's been a guy that has been he spent 2 seasons with Aaron Rodgers and now 2 seasons with Jordan Love. And in my personal opinion, as a person that has been privately critical, I tend not to try to criticize players publicly too much, outside of like during the games a little bit here and there, but I try to keep it. And David, Jets, Jets. Of course, man. Jersey sucks. New Jersey, that is David. That's not me, even though I agree. No, Jersey's fine. It's actually one of my favorite directors is from there. The View Askew, if you know, you know. But but yeah, Josh, he's a guy that you can clearly, I think he was really good his rookie year. Then he had 2 really subpar seasons. There were at times where he was awful. During certain games that he was just, like, immediately, as soon as he snapped the ball, he was just getting pushed back 3, 4, 5 yards into the backfield. And it wasn't against guys that are all pros. Like, if that happens when you're going up against Aaron Donald or some of the guys from the Eagles that we will talk about here, I get that. Hey, sometimes you can only do so much. Not every player is going to be an all-pro, 99 all-Madden or whatever you call them. But man, dude, there were times where Josh was just getting absolutely just destroyed by some guys. But this season, also he had dealt with injuries during that middle part of his career, so that I think that did play a part in it. But the one thing that Josh he's been fairly consistent, man. Trust me, I've seen plenty of games, not only this season but last season. There's a remarkable difference in an offense when there's a bad center. Josh is not a bad center. He is an average NFL center. He's a starting caliber center. And you can definitely tell there are some teams when, bad snaps, bad run block, guys are missing assignments because the center is not communicating. It can get significantly worse. And Josh had his best season in this year by far. He was at his most healthy. He was at his most consistent. I think him and Jordan Love are really starting to finally gel together. We even saw that last year, like early on especially. There were some quick snaps, that Jordan wasn't ready, or it was just, I think during that Atlanta game in week 2 or 3, week 3, when they were trying to do a QB sneak and nobody moved except for Jordan. So they're like stuff like that. That didn't happen this year. It was great. The offensive line was phenomenal. Josh was part of that, and unfortunately, he did get injured at the end of that Eagles game. But hopefully, if he's healthy enough, the Packers might re-sign him, 1-year contract, kind of prove it deal. We'll see what happens. But yeah, average quality is better than jersey quality. Holy cow, David has chosen violence on Valentine's Day. There is no love for Jersey today. Holy cow. But yeah, no. But yeah, Josh, I think is a guy that I could see coming back to Green Bay. I think it's going to be a 1-year contract. I'd be very surprised if it's a multi-year, contract or anything more than that. If it is a 2-year contract, it's more of one of those, hey, if we like you, what you did this coming year, you're healthy enough, then we'll play that on the 2nd-year contract and we'll plan for an extension. But I think Josh is going to be playing a prove-it deal here, as long as that injury isn't too bad. But I wouldn't be surprised if he left. I think the Packers are in a good spot on their offensive line. If Josh kind of finds a better deal somewhere else, I always tell especially when it's your first time getting a major contract, it stinks, it's ugly, it's not great, but chase the money, man. You never know when your career is going to be over. Most of these guys are done playing by the time they're 30, which is around my age, which is crazy to think. And it's like, if you can get yourself an extra 2 or 3 million a year, hey man, go get it. I'm not gonna blame you. But yeah, the Packers have a lot of depth. I wouldn't be surprised if they drafted a center in the draft this year to replace him or for some competition. But yeah, Josh is one of those first guys that I wouldn't be surprised to see sign a contract before free agency, coming back to Green Bay. But I could also see him leaving and trying to see what he can do somewhere else. So that is the first man that we were talking about. Obviously, I'm trying to pick kind of different positions. I know the quarterbacks and the receivers are always the big names. I try to pick some quarterbacks, some wideouts, and some defensive players as well. So varying it up during this discussion. But yeah, Josh Myers, man, starting out the day. Oh, okay. So there's a guy that I know Packer fans want the Packers to sign. Don't worry, these are not all going to be attached to the Packers. Don't worry. I'm just trying to get those guys out of the way a little bit here just to kind of, because I know there's not a whole lot of Packer fans watching right on the channel right now. So we'll keep it, we're going to go with David's favorite New Jersey team. We're going to keep it going here. We're going to go with DJ Reed, the corner, who has been pretty solid throughout his career over there in New Jersey, East Rutherford, New Jersey. But he is coming off a little bit of a average to below average season for not only him but that entire Jets defense. Once they fired Robert Saleh, that team was pretty bad. That defense had a bad 2.5 months after he was fired. They started playing a little bit better towards the end slightly, but yeah, it was not phenomenal. Sorry, I'm just trying to look up something's going on. There we are. Yeah, so DJ, no interceptions this year, which is one of the first times I think he's ever finished with that stat. Uh, 52 solo tackles, 11 pass breakups, which is pretty darn solid, man. But even when he's not getting interceptions or causing turnovers, the one thing that DJ has been consistent with is that he is pretty solid in coverage. He kind of reminds me a little bit of. It's not going to be an immediate comparison, but he does remind me of Sam Shields. Definitely not as fast as Sam Shields, but he's kind of like the skinnier guy, smaller. But man, dude, he is always around the ball. Always around the ball. And I like that he's made a name for himself, man. He's a 5th-round draft pick out of, is it Kansas or Kansas State? Let me see here. Kansas State. There we go. Okay. But yeah, man, still 28 years old, so kind of getting up to that area where, you're kind of within the frame of his prime for sure, but probably within the next 2 to 3 years, he might start to decline a little bit, but that's perfect for what the Packers or maybe some team that just needs a starting caliber corner, which the Packers do. Absolutely they do. Because they cannot go into this next season with the guys that they had this year, even if they have a healthy Ja. Jair has been good when he's healthy, but that has been rare the last couple seasons. And so the Packers need a second guy, a veteran guy, while they also develop somebody hopefully that they draft in a couple months. Hey, yo, Wildcats, man. Kansas State, dude. Can't go wrong with Kansas State, man. Always consistent school. Always producing some really, really solid guys. Was Jordy out of Kansas State? I'm trying to think here now. Sorry, this is how my brain works, man. My brain just goes off on tangents. So I apologize for anybody that's like, oh, can this guy stay on track? No, 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 no. Yes, Jordy Nelson is a Kansas State Wildcat. There we go. That's what I thought, but I wasn't sure. But yeah. Um, yeah, DJ Reader. I think he's gonna be. I think he's gonna command some decent money. I wouldn't be surprised if a team is willing to give him, anywhere between 13 to 16 million a year. It's gonna be one of those 3 to 4 year contracts that usually is more like a 2 year contract. But yeah, man, the guy has been solid. The age thing, being 28, is going to be something that probably is going to keep him from being able to get that top money. Also, he's coming off a little bit of a down year, but I would not be surprised if somebody is willing to roll the dice and give him at least somewhere around the ballpark of 15 million a year for 2 or 3 years. If you were trained, you could stay on track easier. Choo choo. You're telling me, man. You're telling me. But yeah, I'm more of like a, those, how they have like marble games. You throw a marble and it kind of goes through the maze. You never know where it's gonna go, man. It just goes everywhere. But somehow you always end up in the same spot at the end. But yeah. So DJ Reader, man, I think he's gonna be a solid corner for somebody. Again, a little bit older, not gonna be one of the prized possessions. If you can get him on a 1 year, 2 year contract worth around like 10 to 12 million, I think that's going to be a great sweet spot, great value. And I think wherever he goes, I think he's going to be considered one of their top 2 corners. So hopefully Green Bay at least is in the conversation for DJ. So now that you said if you were a train, now I'm just thinking of myself as like Thomas the Tank Engine, Dave the Train. Oh, it's got a good ring to it. It's got a good ring to it. Alrighty. So while I'm bringing up the next player here, let me know in the chat, man, David or anybody else that's in there as well. But David, let me know which free agent are you looking forward to the most for your team? I know KC doesn't have a whole lot of room on their cap, but let's be honest, man, KC has made it happen. All for the last couple seasons, man. They always seem to find that extra $5 to $7 million. So let me know who you want for KC next season. Maybe T. Higgins. All right. So the next player we are going to talk about here is the big man, Milton Williams. And if you watch the Super Bowl, you know what this guy did and is capable of, man. So looking at his regular season stats, doesn't blow you away by any means. 11 tackles, 1 forced fumble, but did record 5 sacks in the regular season. So once again, not crazy numbers, nothing like that. But man, dude, during the Super Bowl, this guy was a problem, racking up 2 sacks during that Super Bowl run. And I mean, the kid is he's 25 and he doesn't turn 26 until about 2 months from now. Let me see, David Myles Garrett, maybe not for KC. KC just needs to go sit in the corner for about 10 years to avoid all hate. Weirdly enough, I think for the most part, man, I'm not gonna lie. I think now that like KC didn't win it, I think we're gonna see a lot less hate for Kansas City. I think I might be wrong. I don't know, but I think that Super Bowl was very cathartic for some people that really wanted to see KC lose, and I think they got most of that out of their system. At least I hope. I don't know, but yeah, the yeah, I think you're gonna be. I think KC will be fine this year. I think there's gonna be a lot less drama and attention, negative attention towards them. But Millen Williams, man, there's a kid. So if that Super Bowl is any indication of what this kid is going to be capable of, once again, he's only going to turn 26, man. That is for a defensive lineman. Those guys tend to play well into their early 30s at a high level. Still, like you look at Cameron Hayward, you look at Milton's teammate Brandon Graham. There's so many examples. T.J. Watt, like all these guys that were well into their 30s, 31, 32, 33, and we're still playing at a high level. And because of that, the main reason is obviously defensive linemen, especially an interior guy. They're not relying on speed. They're not relying on the things that kind of degrade very quickly once you reach a certain age. As long as you like these guys, as long as their power is still there and their technique is there, especially their technique, they can typically kind of push Father Time just a little bit further down the road. And once again, this kid, man, this is gonna be a kid that's potentially gonna get a 5 to 6 year contract. Um, how much of that per year, I'm not exactly sure, but I would be surprised if somewhere north of 14, so probably north of that, is way north of that probably. But there's going to be a team that's going to be willing to gamble on him. Philly might be that team, but I would not be surprised if they decide to let him go, because there's a lot of other guys on that defensive line that they got to pay over the next year or two. But yeah, man, Melvin Williams, I want to get him on there because I think this is a kid who is ascending, who is going to potentially, you might be able to get him for a decent deal. And even if you have to overpay, if this kid can reach the heights of his potential, what he showed at during, not only during the Super Bowl, but in certain spots this season, I think in 2 or 3 years, that contract will look like, I don't want to say a bargain, but it will be just in line of where it should be. And like I said, give him a 5 6 year deal. He plays only 3 or 4. The kid's still going to be barely 30 years old. So yeah, that's a player that I'm hoping gets a big contract. He's looked good. Where's he out of? Louisiana Tech, 3rd round pick in 2021. So yeah, anytime you have a big game in the Super Bowl, that's going to just bring more attention to you. And I think the kid, he played well, and I think there's going to be definitely some suitors for him in free agency. But yeah, man, dude, imagine if Miles Garrett actually went to KC. That would be absolutely wild. I don't even think they would need Miles Garrett there, but I mean, it wouldn't hurt. It definitely would not hurt. Yeah, I'm trying to think here. Who could Kansas City realistically go after? You know who they could go for? And there's a play that I am hoping comes to Green Bay actually. Hopefully it comes on a deal, but I think somebody's gonna overpay for him, in a good way. Once again, that is you know what? I already have the picture up. Might as well show here, and that is Uncle Rico from Dallas. Rico Dowdle, is a player that I could see potentially going to Kansas City if they can find the money for it, man. This guy was phenomenal. Utterly, utterly phenomenal for the Dallas Cowboys during one of the worst seasons we've seen out of them in a while. And despite not having Dak Prescott, despite not having a whole lot of receivers to take attention away from him, this guy seemingly got better and better as the season went on. Yeah, dude, Rico Dowdle. I think I even talked about it during one of the power rankings. There was like a month where I think he led the NFL in like a 4 to 5 week span in terms of rushing yards. And he seems capable as a receiver as well. So there's what he finished with: 235 carries, a little over. Let me see, we got 1,079 yards, averaged just over 4.5 yards. Did only find the end zone twice on the ground, but he was able to tack on 39 catches for 249 and 3 receiving touchdowns. So a total of 5 on the season. And most of those yardage, man, came up towards the end of the season. Like against Philly, it went over 100 yards. Against Carolina, he had 149 yards. And then against the Bengals, which it is the Bengals, especially this year, he did go off for a $131. So the kid was just picking up yards, man. And he just got better and better as the season went on. He did not have a great game against Tampa, being held to just 23 yards. But I mean, that Tampa defense front seven was really, really dang good. David, does jumping into the end zone count as finding the end zone in the air? Oh, you know what? Why not? Nobody's here to tell us no. I will say yes. But yeah, man, Rico. This guy is 26 years old, out of South Carolina. Doesn't turn 27 until the middle of the season, the middle of the year, in June. And he, like I said, coming off by far the best season of his career, was barely used. So there's not a whole lot of mileage on those legs. This is a kid that I think in his career, yes, he has less than 350 carries. So this is a kid that I could easily see going to a team on a 1-year contract, or even if it's a multi-year deal, it's not going to be a lot, especially running backs. Like Saquon and Derrick Henry obviously changed some narratives of the value of running backs, but I still don't think there's going to be a whole lot of money being put into those guys. And I think if you can get Rico on a 3 or 4 year deal, once again, 3 to 4 year deals, that's actually more of like a 2-year deal. But a 3 to 4 year deal, that's somewhere around $6 to $8 million, and it can give you almost 11,000 on the ground while picking up, another 200 or 300 through the air. I mean, that's right there. That's a number one back. It's not a high end, it's not Saquon or Derrick Henry, but hey, I'll take a top 12, top 15 NFL back for 6 or 7 million. And a kid who is relatively young, still about to enter his prime, or is entering his prime, and doesn't have a whole lot of mileage, not a whole lot of injury history as well. So, AKF, what's going on, man? What are your thoughts on Kentucky defensive tackle Deion Walker for the Packers in the draft? So, not going to lie, I do not know Deion Walker, but let me look him up really quickly here. Oh, AKF, didn't you mention this guy before? I think we actually, let me see here. Dang, this kid is huge. Like, he's a defensive lineman, I knew that, but holy cow, this kid's big. All right, out of Detroit, 6'7", holy cow, 345. Okay, so you got invited to the Senior Bowl. That's massive. That's huge. That kind of tells that a lot of NFL teams want to see this kid go up against some good competition. Yeah, this kid looks like he almost looks like a like a bigger version of Kenny Clark almost. Funny thing is, he played edge at. Oh, really? Holy cow, man! So this kid has to be athletic. Yeah, a kid that is obviously in the NFL. I think he's going to be just the way he's built. I think you can turn him into a lot of different things. Especially guys like this, man. So much of that like nutrition and training program is going to be massive. It's really really it's true for any player. Obviously, they need to take care of their bodies. They need to get into the gym, but like especially with defensive linemen and offensive linemen, so much of that is about getting your body right, getting everything down because so much of it is just such a grind. It's such a grind. Every game is a grind. Every season is a grind. You know, these guys are always just kind of. It's like a car crash every single play, and yeah, man, this kid has a solid build. He's a little bit narrow at the top, so I'm kind of curious if they can kind of build him out. Because if you look at guys like again, every player is different, but like if you guys look like Kenny Clark, Miles Garrett, guys like defensive linemen, kind of in a way, they usually have a little bit of a broader shoulders, and this kid is a little bit he's a little bit more narrow at the top. So I don't know if he'll be able to I don't know if you'll be able to build or if it just wasn't, basically add on extra pound, a couple extra pounds. But he's big, man. He's a big kid, and I would have to see the film, definitely for sure. So I'm gonna hold off on my opinion, but for the most part, man, the kid has the size, and if he can play edge and defensive tackle, man, there's some versatility there. Definitely some versatility. But yeah, but I think the Packers definitely need they definitely need some help in the secondary for the most part, mostly corner. I think their safeties are okay, but I would like them maybe to draft another safety there, kind of add some depth. But corner, edge rusher for sure, man, because man, the Packers pass rush was absolute garbage this season. Outside of a few games where they were going up against some really bad offensive linemen, yeah, their pass rush was basically non-existent. The running game was good. I think that was the first time in like a decade that the Packers were actually really, really good or a borderline top five against the run. Let me see. He had a down year stats wise last season, but Kentucky as a whole had a down year. Yeah, and usually that's kind of like with college, man. Like if your team is having a bad season, it's really, really tough. It's like in the NFL, you can kind of some guys are like Miles Garrett. Even if their team is bad, they can typically have great individual seasons because they're given the free range to kind of go after. I don't want to say their stats, but to go make a play to try to change the game, change the momentum. But when you're in college, unless you are one of like a star, like a superstar, you're typically going to be told, stay within the system, stay within the game plan. Do not go, chasing sacks and things like that. So you have to kind of see what is he doing individually, how is he competing against the man that's in front of him. If he's winning, but he doesn't get there because somebody else blew a coverage and the ball was able to get out there quicker than it should have been, or something like that, you can't really put that on him. But we'll see. But I definitely do want to look at some film. This season, I may not do a kind of like what Tom does, Tom Grassi, or even some other YouTubers that do football. I may not do like a draft kind of thing this season just because I'm trying to get a system down, and I hope next season I will get ready to go and I will have that for you. But I'm definitely going to look at some film because I do want to talk about some players that I hope the Packers can draft. So I might do that. It may not be, very analytical. It might be more just like I like this kid. I like how he plays, and I hope maybe if they can plug him in Green Bay, it'll work. So, David, don't go chasing waterfalls. Oh man, I'll sing the whole song, man. Everyone needs a little TLC in their life. But yeah, Deion Walker, man, that is a name that I'm gonna actually have my pen and paper here. That is a name I'm gonna write down, and I will get back to you, AKF. Probably, hopefully next week, man. Actually, that might be something I might do next week. Just kind of bring a list of things the Packers might need, and maybe pick a player or two that I might be looking at. Maxwell Harrison is a corner the Packers could grab in a second if they don't go corner first round. He's also from Kentucky. There we go. But yeah, man. Oh, AKF, man. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, those names are jotted down, and we'll check them out, man. Um, yeah, who knows, man? Maybe if I do enough research, I might just be like, you know what? Maybe I'll do some draft stuff. But right now, I don't want to promise anything that I'm not sure if I'll be able to get done. Just because I'm still trying to figure out this. Basically everything. Honestly, I'm still trying to figure everything out. There are certain things I've gotten a lot better at, but I'm trying to make sure that the quality is slightly there. I always like to say it's always going to stink, but it might stink a little bit less if I can get a system down. That's usually how I roll. Yeah, you learn best by doing, but I also do want to have a little bit of a base for some of the stuff like that. I don't know. Also, I don't want to waste your time, guys. I appreciate you. I want to make sure that what you're watching, even whether it's 5 minutes or an hour and a half, it's at least entertaining. Even if it's just me messing up. So, but yeah, man. Heck yeah. A sense of Kentucky theme. Do you like the bourbon whiskey? Ooh. There we go. Do I have any? Oh, I do have whiskey. Yeah, actually I do. But we're not drinking tonight. Well, not tonight, at least. But yeah, man. They'll both be at the combine, so there'll be some easy research for you. Heck yeah, let's go. Yeah, and that's another thing too, man. It's definitely going to be paying attention a lot more to the combine, probably watching it a lot too. So we'll be checking that stuff out. Nah, I'm a Kentucky fan, so I'm too young to drink. that's that's fair. That's fair. As a person that does drink, it's not that fun, man. It's nice, but it's expensive too. Yeah, if I do drink, I go for a scotch. You get a little bit of it, sip on it for an hour, and that's it. But yeah, so going back, just finishing up with Rico Dowdle. Once again, a play that I've really liked. If you watched any of the Cowboys games or even during the power rankings, um, you know that I this kid was always coming out, just making plays, and once again, Uncle Rico, man, it's so fun to say, Uncle Rico. Hopefully, the kid can get paid, and hopefully, he finds a team that is going to be able to utilize him. And oh, speaking of Aaron, we will be touching on him. I have, let me see, two more players. Sorry, two, almost three players to talk about. Aaron will be one of the last guys that we do talk about, but once again, he's only three players away. So, but yeah, I'll give you a preview. I think it's going to be a small pool of teams that are willing to put up with Aaron. Um, because when he was leaving Green Bay, he was coming off some of the best seasons of his career. Obviously, the last season in Green Bay was a little bit down, but that whole team was not amazing. So I think a lot of teams were willing to take a risk on Aaron. This season, after what has happened, his age, his injury history, and just everything surrounding him outside of the field, I think there's going to be a smaller group of teams that are willing to put up with him. But we will go into in depth in just a few minutes with Aaron. But there are a few more players I do want to talk about, and luckily the next one is actually going to be a twofer, so we'll be able to knock two birds with one stone here. And David, like you were reading my mind, dude. You mentioned the Steelers. Well, guess what? We're going to be talking about their their last two quarterbacks that they traded for / signed, and we're going to talk about them at the same time because there is a good chance that both of these guys are gone in the coming weeks. So we'll talk about their number one starter that they finished the season with, and that is Russell Wilson, the man out of Wisconsin, for that one season. But yeah, man, the Seahawks legend, the Super Bowl champion, the man that stole a win for the Packers back in 2012. Yes, I have not forgiven him for the Hail Mary. Was it his fault? No. But guess what? He threw the ball, and that caused the issue. How dare he? How dare he not take a sack for that loss? Russ probably ends up in Vegas or as a bridge quarterback. Once again, man, you guys are reading my mind. Russell Wilson, I think there's going to be a few more teams that are willing to take a risk on him than potentially Aaron. I think Russ is limited at this point in his career. I don't know how or when it happened. It was definitely when he was in Seattle, but there was a season where it just, whatever athletic juice or magic that he had that was able to get him out of sacks, get him out of pressure, and just find great throws down the field. You're still seeing flashes of that, but it is nowhere near as consistent as it used to be during his prime in Seattle. When you look at when he gets pressured, man, he shrinks. He just, like, there's almost no fight, and I hate to say that because I feel like I'm attacking his ability. I'm just saying, like, I think he's more of like, I'm just gonna take a hit. I'm gonna take the sack, I should say. I'm just gonna go down. That's not always the case. Like I said, you see flashes of that, but there is a lot of times where I'm like, man, Russ from 3 or 4 years ago would have been able to at least come close to getting out of that sack. Now you just kind of see him just like, if the throw is not there and there's pressure, he just kind of shrivels up a little bit. I'm not sure what it is. But yeah, man, with Russ, it's weird. He still has that moon ball down the field. We saw it plenty of times this season. But I think he is a player that it needs a lot more support than he used to. I think he needs to be around a good offensive line, which he had early in his career in Seattle. But then towards the last few seasons, I mean, the guy was running for his life. So that's, to be fair to Russ, he was absolutely battered the last couple seasons in Seattle. But so a team that he could go to, I would say, I think Las Vegas would be the team, but their offensive line is not amazing. And to be fair, I think if Russ had his pick, it would be probably somewhere in the I'm trying to think here. My goodness. I mean, will he go to the Jets? I think the Jets are willing to roll the dice on somebody in the draft, but Yeah, I'm trying to think, man. I guess Las Vegas is really the only team I can think of. Indianapolis might be willing to take a flyer on him, but man, I don't know how many times Indianapolis needs to be burned by a quarterback before they just try to draft somebody and develop somebody. Yeah, I can't think of anybody else that would be willing to take the risk, man. The Giants, their offensive line is not very good either, though. Um, yeah, I think the best chance for Russ would be the Raiders, I guess, because New Orleans, they might be willing to. I think they're going to be wanting to draft somebody, but that's another chance right there. Oh my God, no, I don't. I don't think he wants to go back to Seattle, man. One, I don't think he wants to go back there, and I think if they're gonna go that route, I think they would just stick with Geno. But that would be hilarious if Russell Wilson did come back to Seattle. But yeah, I think his best chance is gonna be in New Orleans because I think they would need a little bit of stability there. I know they have Spencer Rattler, but that kid is. I feel like that kid needs some more development. It wouldn't be bad if he would sit for a season and just kind of learn from a guy like Russ. And weirdly enough, man, despite Rattler, I think he has a slightly, I don't want to say he has a better arm, but he has a very similar style to Russell Wilson. They're both mobile guys. They both have the ability to run and throw like down the field with great accuracy, and they're not afraid to challenge a defense throwing it deep. So I mean, I think New Orleans. If I was New Orleans, I would try to go for Russ because I mean you're going to be able to have a chance to really develop Rattler unless you find somebody in the draft. Oh man, that's right, man. Dude, their cap has to be in awful shape. I keep on forgetting New Orleans. I keep on forgetting about their cap because somehow every single season they always seem to be like 90 million underneath the cap, and then they always somehow find a way to get off of it. But yeah, I don't think they're going to be able to afford Russ. That's right. Sorry, Russell, you're going to go to the Raiders because nobody else can afford you right now. Yeah, plus Las Vegas has a lot of cap space, or a decent amount of cap space, actually. They're negative 50 million in the cap, bro. It's actually a lot better than I thought it was. I thought it was closer to like 75. I remember a couple seasons ago, they were like 90, almost 90 under the cap, and I was just like, or over the cap, I should say, over. That's the proper term. Yeah, it did not look good for them, but somehow within a couple of weeks they were like, oh yeah, we're 2 million under the cap now, so we're good. I was like, how'd you make that happen? But yeah, I think Russell, I think New Orleans would be the better spot for him, but obviously, are they going to be able to afford him? Probably not. So I think Las Vegas would have the best chance to get him, and I think he would be. See, the big issue with that is that the Raiders lack playmakers. They lack a very good offensive line. I think their offensive line is average, but I think with Russell, you need to either have major weapons there for him to get the ball out quickly too, or you need an offensive line that is able to hold up while he's trying to find something down the field. And I think if he goes there, it's just going to be. There's one of my favorite terms to use, and I heard it during a Madden game from like 15 years ago. It's like moving chairs around on the Titanic. Doesn't really matter. It's going to sink regardless. And I think that's what it's going to happen if Russell goes to the Raiders. Unless they have a dramatic change in the way that their offense is run, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. I think it's going to be very similar to what we saw this past year with the guys, basically the guys that they had. But yeah, that's Russ. Now with Justin Fields, this one is a little bit more interesting. This one is, I think it was clear at the end of the season that despite Russell Wilson being the starter there, I think he had kind of lost the locker room. He had lost the coaching staff as well. There was talks of him and the offensive coordinator not really getting along or not seeing eye to eye. So I think if there's any of these two quarterbacks that comes back, I would say Justin Fields actually has a better chance. Once again, there's a reason they benched him because they felt Russ was a better choice. It's tough to argue with that. They were playing really well for a while, but then the last couple games, man, the Steelers just fell apart. And even when they did insert Justin Fields, they rarely ever gave him a chance to play quarterback. It was mostly just running plays or like weird little options, and it was just, you could just tell it was not a play that was designed for a quote unquote traditional quarterback. Even though we've seen Justin Fields, man, the kid has an arm. He can play somewhat accurately at times, but it's just so inconsistent, and he's never really been developed. Like, I don't know how much developing they did when he was in Pittsburgh, but it didn't look like they really were trying to make him a quarterback. It was just more of like, we'll use him in situations where, you know, we can either make him run or make him slightly throw a ball, 5 or 10 yards down the field. But it was never anything, that would make him into a better quarterback. Let me see here, David. Yes, but the Raiders failing is just what what I would like to see. You know what? That's fair. That's fair. I mean, don't get me wrong. I understand it, man. Seeing the Bears fail every time, it does make me feel a little warm inside. It feels like something is right in the universe. Where you're like, yeah, there we go. Isn't that what Valentine's is all about? The downfall of your opponent? But yeah, Justin Fields, it's a team that could use his services. How crazy would it be if Justin Fields went to Indianapolis to basically almost replace, or to basically as like a placeholder for Richardson until they can kind of get him right? And AKF, I think Justin could stay as a Steeler. I think so. I think even if they bring in Rodgers, it would not be bad to have Justin Fields there. Because one, who knows if Rodgers can stay healthy, and who knows if his play is going to be improved. Because that way you always have a back. It's always good to have a backup that has legitimate starting experience in the NFL. Plus, with Justin, man, you have a young quarterback that has, once again, playing experience, but also is incredibly athletic. Like, worst comes to worst, you're going to be like, all right, if we can't run a traditional offense, we'll find a way. We'll do the wildcat. We'll do something to get this, to make some big plays down the field. So, yeah. I think with Justin, it is going to be, I think it is for him, it might be, I think if he does leave Pittsburgh, I think it's going to be a backup somewhere. I would not be surprised. Again, it's always kind of tough because I don't have the cap numbers here. Let me double check here. But I would kind of be curious to see him in Miami. Yeah, him and Tua with those receivers that they have, man. Holy cow. All right, here we go. Here we go. All right, the number one team with the most cap is going to be New England. Las Vegas has a bunch of cap. Holy cow. They got $92 million. Giants pick up Fields. He does well. Chicago looks like a fool for not figuring him out. Oh, man, I don't know, man. I think we've seen the Giants have not been able to develop a quarterback. Because, I mean, Daniel Jones, granted, it's Danny Dimes. He did not look great throughout most of his career there. And even the season after the season that he had and where they paid him, I think almost everybody was like, why? Why? Like, that season was not worth $40 million. And, but yeah, I mean, that's a team that could be looking for for a quarterback as well and free agency, even if it's just for competition slash backup. Because I think they don't the Giants hold like one of the top 5 picks. If I'm the Giants, man, I'd trade up, try to find one of those quarterbacks in the draft. I'm trying to think here. So there isn't a whole lot of room. Yeah, New Orleans is -60 in the. Oh my god, man, that is awful. Same thing with Cleveland. They're 34. Seattle is 19 under over the cap. Yeah, if I'm Pittsburgh, man, not only are you not in a great spot to draft a quarterback, your cap is not terrible, but 37 million is not a significant amount. But yeah, Justin Fields, I could easily see him staying in Pittsburgh. Plus, since he didn't have a major season or like really play a whole lot, he's gonna come cheap. It's gonna come very, very cheap to the Steelers to re-sign him. But yeah, so that is Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. I think Russell, if he goes anywhere, I think it's gonna be with the Raiders. But once again, that's a whole lot of cap room for the Raiders, and they might be in play with another quarterback that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes. But yeah, Tennessee also has a bunch of money, and they would not hesitate to throw some money at both of these guys. That's another spot. And when you talk about like Rodgers, once again, we'll talk about him a little bit. I feel like we're kind of inserting him every once in a while. He's talked about wanting to be with a contender. Russell and Justin, clearly they want to win. They want to be on the best team possible, but I think they both know that they're not in a position to demand that. They're not Tom Brady. They're not Peyton Manning. They're not even Aaron Rodgers right now. I think these guys are going to be willing to take any opportunity to be the starter, and that's going to be their best path to not only a bigger contract, but future stability at their job or job security. So Tennessee is a team that I would not be surprised if they took a flyer on one of these guys. 1-year contract. Let's throw 20 million or 15 million at one of these guys, and it doesn't stop them from drafting somebody, but it's going to give them a chance to be competitive with a quarterback that has some experience. So I think Tennessee is definitely an option for both of these guys, and wouldn't be surprised if they decide to go that route. Tennessee has a really bad offense, actually, but their defense is not terrible, and they've changed a few things here and there, and they could be part of something that they can rebuild there in a year or two. But yeah, and like you said, AKF, the Giants are there as well if they want to stay in the big market. All right. We got one more player before we talk about the Grand Poobah, but this is one of my favorite players of the season. This is a guy that has had one of the better seasons I've seen out of a linebacker. Every single time, this guy was just making play after play after play, and obviously, he's coming off one of the best seasons not only for him but for his franchise, and that is the former Wisconsin Badger, Zach Bond. Yeah, man, this guy. What can I say, man? This guy was phenomenal all season long. Hard hitter, and had a heck of a season, not only regular season, but postseason as well. Titans can 100 be a playoff team. It's not like that division is tough. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's another thing too. That's kind of why the Titans are, their team is not great. But we've seen teams that have really bad seasons. If they're gonna get one good draft, can hit on a free agent here and there, especially a quarterback, we've seen them turn it around in one season, and on top of that, you're in one of the worst divisions in football. Like the Texans were basically limping to the playoffs this season. Indianapolis could not get out of its own way. They had a chance to win that division, and they just kept on blowing chance after chance after chance. It was just, yeah. And then finally, Jacksonville is Jacksonville. They're yeah. So yeah, man. If I'm one of those guys, I say, hey, man, I'll take my chance, sign a 1-year contract with the Titans, and see if we can make the playoffs. But going back to Zach Bond, let's look at his numbers. The 28-year-old linebacker out of Wisconsin was picked up in the third round in the 2020 draft. He had 93 tackles, 3.5 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, and 1 interception. But he also was able to tack on another forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries, and 2 interceptions in the postseason, including the Super Bowl, picking off Pat Mahomes inside their own inside KC's 20. And yeah, this guy was just crazy. Defensive Player of the Year nominee. Played most of his career in New Orleans, but signed a 1-year contract with the Eagles, and what a heck of a contract that was. Got a Super Bowl ring out of it, and now he's gonna have a great chance to cash in at just 28 years old. Just turned 28 in December, and I mean, the season that he had, the way it ended, and his age, I think this guy is gonna sign a really lucrative, 4 to 5 year contract. It's probably gonna be a 4-year contract. But yeah, man, this guy is somebody that I would have liked to see with the Packers, but I think he's going to be way out of the price range. And I'm going to be curious to see if he stays in Philly. Maybe takes a discount, because Philly is a little hard-pressed in the cap, I think. They are $24 million under the cap, so they got some room. So they could make Zach one of their probably 2 major signings or re-signings. But yeah, dude, this guy, if you looked, like, even just take away the stats, the numbers and stuff like that, when you look at the way that defense played, the defensive line is always going to take the sorry, I'm going to move him because it's kind of blocking my face, because I know you want to see this ugly mug. There we go. Oh, absolutely, man. I was actually going to bring up the Packer game. This guy was absolutely just destroying our receivers and tight ends. This guy hits hard. He runs pretty darn fast. And I don't know, man. This guy just was a menace over the middle. Like, every single time I watched a game, this guy was just making plays, dude. It was wild. He was just everywhere on the field, always around the ball, making plays on the ball, whether it was intercepting it, forcing the ball out with a fumble, getting his hands on it to knock it away, or just delivering a bone-crushing hit that would force a play. And that Packer game, you can just watch the highlights. This guy was just absolutely crushing the Packers offense, and it was sad and infuriating, but as a football fan, it was impressive to watch. Week 1, he kept doing stuff, and I was like, like, who? I know, man. Like, I remember Zach Bond. I remember because I live in Wisconsin, and I remember watching Badger games. He was great there. And I was like, oh, yeah, he went to New Orleans. He had a solid career in New Orleans. He was never, like, I don't know what happened, but this season was very different. Like, you can tell this guy was a starting caliber linebacker. This turned him into, like I said, a Defensive Player of the Year nominee. This guy was having the best season of his career by far. And yeah, man, he was just all over the field. Heck of a player. And he's going to get paid. And if I'm New England, if I'm the Raiders, the top two teams with the most cap, I am going after this guy. Even if it blows up, even if he reverts back to his New Orleans days where he's just a solid linebacker, I'll take it. I will take it. I will take a guy that is going to be able to tackle well and is going to be somewhat around the ball and might make a play here and there. Yeah, man. I know off the ball linebackers typically don't get paid a whole lot, but if you can get him for around 15 to 18 per season, I say do it. Because if he can have another season like he did here, that changes the entire way your defense is going to be able to play, especially over the middle. And also New Orleans, Washington, $79 million over the cap. If I'm them, this guy absolutely made some major plays during that NFC Championship game. I would not be surprised if Washington try to see if they can turn this Kelly Green linebacker into a beautiful shade of red. Burgundy? Is it burgundy? Might be burgundy. I don't know. But yeah, man, it's yeah, there's gonna be a lot of suitors for this kid. For this guy. You got the Chargers with a bunch of money. The Chicago Bears. God, please don't go to Chicago. And then Arizona and Minnesota. Detroit also has a lot of money. But granted, some of those teams are going to be probably signing some big name players. He'd be the most hated man in Philly if he went to the commies. Yeah, but I mean, if I was Zach, I'd be like, hey, you can hate me, but if it wasn't for me, man, we wouldn't have our second ring as a franchise. Because he was like that second interception, like the DeJean interception was huge. It was massive, made it into a 17-0 lead. But that interception by Bond just before the half ended inside the 20, that basically turned what was potentially a potential blowout into basically, oh, this is going to be a rout. Because there was enough time for Kansas City to get down the field, score a touchdown just before the half, and then be like, okay, they're down by 10. We've seen them down by 10 before, blah, blah, blah. After that happens, you're like, oh, Mahomes is having a really bad game. And then on top of that, Philly was able to score before the half, and that's, yeah. Whew. Eagles fans are in for a shock when they have to pay all them rookie deals, superstars they got. Absolutely, man. There's going to be a lot of guys that they need to pay. I mean, half of that defensive line is going to have to be paid within the next year. I mean, you got Nolan Smith, Josh Sweat, who is also a free agent. He was actually a guy that I was going to add into this, but I felt like it was going to be a little too long to talk. But yeah, man, just a heck of a guy, and he's going to get paid. Simple as that. Zach Bond. All right. Now we're going to go to the final free agent that we're going to talk about tonight. And after that, we're going to speed run my favorite halftime shows that I've seen. And then I'll give you guys a chance as well to bring up some halftime shows because I want to hear your opinion on those as well. That'll be the last thing we talk about before we bounce out of here. So Aaron Rodgers and then halftime shows. Bam. There we go. Same for Detroit. Gibbs and Hutch will cost a pretty penny. Absolutely. Hutchinson, he's got that 5-year contract, even though it seems like the NFL doesn't really use those anymore. I feel like after they play their fourth season, or even before their fourth season, they are typically getting paid during that season. Gibbs, how long is Gibbs? Was this his second season? I think he's still got at least one more season before he has to get paid. Trying to think here. Jahmyr Gibbs was drafted in 2023. So yeah, this was his second season. So I think Gibbs will get paid after this next coming season. And Hutch was the year before? Or was it... Hutch was 2022, right? Okay, yeah, 2022. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to sign him this season or this off season. If not, maybe during the season they might try. But yeah, there's gonna be a lot of teams at the very top of this this cap salary. They're gonna have to pay some of these guys pretty soon. Outside of maybe New England and Las Vegas, I feel like they don't have a whole lot of blue chip players as of right now. All right, so let's talk about the final man here, the former Green Bay Packers, soon to be the former New York Jet, and that is Aaron, who has where to begin? I'm going to try to keep it to the football field, but I will kind of talk about some of the stuff surrounding Aaron Rodgers. I'm not going to go into too much detail because, to be completely honest with you, I don't care. I don't care about his opinions. I don't care about all this other stuff, man. It's not worth talking about outside of just what it relates to football. So anyway, Aaron Rodgers, as of officially today, as of reported a few days ago during the Super Bowl, actually, the Jets are going to be moving on from Aaron Rodgers. They did say it was a mutual parting of the ways. I think it was more of like the Jets saying, either you're going to do what necessarily how we want you to be, and that's going to be acting like most of the other guys in this locker room, or you're not invited back. And we know Rodgers at this point, he doesn't like that. He wants to be his own guy, which at the end of the day, you got to respect. It's a human being. You got to live your life how you want to. But yeah, you can clearly tell Aaron Glenn is trying to set a tone that is very, very different from Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh, who were very much willing to do whatever it took to make Rodgers happy because they believed that he would bring them to success. And it did not happen. Rodgers is not the only reason that did not happen, as much as some people like to say. There was a whole lot of issues with the Jets. First off, they're the Jets. That's issue number one. No, it's, I don't know what it is, man. They have good players, whether it was coaching, whether it was the drama outside of it. Maybe it's just being in a city like New York, but I think that's just an excuse. It just did not happen, man. I think part of it felt like a team of great players. Great players and individuals. It was not a great team. That's the only thing I can feel like, because these players are talented. We've seen them. The young guys that were there, Garrett Wilson, Sauce, we've seen them play at a high level individually. We've seen the older veterans like DJ Reader and my God, I'm trying to think here, Alan Lazard, Devontae Adams. We've seen those guys find success in their past careers. So the talent was there. It just never coalesced as a team. It just, as a person that saw a few of the Jets games this season, it always felt herky-jerky. It never felt like it was a cohesive offense. It never felt like a cohesive defense. Everything was just, hopefully it works. And sometimes it did, and sometimes it didn't. And that's what happens when you have great talent. Sometimes the random whatever it was, it'll work because they're talented. But guess what? It takes more than that to be able to find consistent success in the NFL in the regular season or even in the playoffs. I think Rodgers goes to the Titans, mentors Levis. Oh man, I don't know, man. Is Levis even going to survive? I mean, the only reason I would be hesitant. It would be interesting to see him go to the Titans, but one, we've heard Rodgers at least say it out loud. He wants to be with a contender. I don't think you can consider the Titans a contender, even if you believe that they can win the division relatively easier than some other divisions. I don't think that makes you a contender. And two, I think we've seen what mentoring means when you bring in a player like Rodgers in the NFL. Some people think that Rodgers ran Wilson out of town, and that's why he ended up in Denver. A lot of people think that Aaron was trying to basically like snuff out Jordan's career before he even started. I don't think any of that is true. Especially when you see how certain players talk about Rodgers in the locker room. I think he's really well liked. I think he's very, very well liked, and I think he likes his guys. I think if he doesn't like you, it becomes a problem. But for the most part, I think Rodgers, for the most part, likes the guys that are in the locker room, as long as you're able to buy into the team as well as buy into him. Then it's part of it. But I think if you're going to bring a guy like Rodgers, even if it's one season, Will Levis is a second-round pick. He's already 2 years in. If you bench him this year to be a backup or to learn from Rodgers, you're getting, even if Rodgers retires after the season, you're going to get one more season with Levis to evaluate him. Maybe it's enough time, especially with the previous seasons. But I think at that point, I would say just cut the cord with Levis. He's a second-round pick. If you're willing to roll the dice on Rodgers, I think you just let Levis go. Let me see here. David, team culture was like 12 days old, garbage in my... I think that's part of it, man. It sounds cheesy. It sounds, like almost like a movie. But culture is important, man. Look at Detroit. Look at how Detroit changed when I'm trying to think here. I'm trying to think of the head coach that was there. Jim Schwartz. Solid coach. You can clearly tell that they were winning because they had more talent. They had Megatron. They had Stafford. But the Lions were still the Lions during that. They had talent. They had a better defense. But they just could not get over the hump. Then Jim Caldwell got there. He gave them a little bit of stability. He gave them a little bit of an identity. But they still could not get there. And then finally, it took a while, but they finally now were able to marry the talent on the field to the identity off of it as well. And that's what you're seeing with Dan Campbell. That's what you're seeing with Detroit. And sometimes that takes a couple seasons, man. And the Jets were never willing to do that with Rodgers because they were just saying, all right, Aaron, here are the keys. Here are your guys that you want us to sign. Lazard, Cobb, there's a bunch of other guys. Billy Turner. I think, who else was there for a bit there? My God, there was another offensive lineman. Was it Jake Hansen? He was like a 6th-round draft pick for the Packers a couple of years ago. Like, there was a lot of former Packers that were there that Rodgers clearly liked and wanted, but it never turned into a culture. Never turned into something that was outside of the player. And I think that's part of was part of the issue over there in Detroit, in the Jets. But yeah, it was interesting to see how that unfolded, and it's unfortunate. I think that first season with Rodgers could have been something different. I think that was going to be their best chance to win something, and unfortunately, 4 plays in, the season blew up. Let me see here. AKF, I might be biased towards Levis because he gave Kentucky some good years, but I do see potential there. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, yeah, I think Levis he gets dogged on a lot, not only for the commercials and the mayo. It is weird. It is weird to put mayonnaise in your coffee. Um, I'm not saying it's wrong. I haven't tried it. Don't knock it till you try it, I guess. But it is weird, and I think that especially in like a big like internet culture, especially when you're in, you're famous, you're gonna get dogged on. And I think anytime you make mistakes like that, when you do something weird in your personal life, if you don't absolutely kill it on the field, you're definitely gonna be made fun of, and sometimes that can add pressure. And on top of that, you're on a bad team over there in Tennessee. They're not great. They lack talent. They traded away some of their best players or cut some of their best players over the last couple seasons. They've obviously cut or let go some of most of their coaching staff over the last couple seasons as well. So there's a lot of change. And anytime you see that, you look at Alex Smith, you look at David Carr, you look at David Carr, you look at any quarterback that has had to change offensive coordinators, change head coaches, or just dramatic change in their player personnel, especially on the offense, you're typically going to see those players, their numbers, their confidence, their consistency just goes down. And I think that's a big part of what Levis is dealing with. I think that he hasn't had stability since he got to Tennessee. I think the talent has gotten worse, and the coaching staff has been inconsistent for him. I don't think he's helped himself as well, trying to do too much. Trying to make some crazy plays, diving for first downs. It's like sometimes you just gotta take what the defense gives you, get the ball out quickly, and just go. But that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, man, I agree with you. I think Levis is more talented than what he has shown. But I think the issue is going to be bigger than what Levis is able to deal with, and also is going to take more time than his rookie contract to fix. He's got 2 more years, and Tennessee is at least 2 to 3 years away from being back to being stable potentially. We're going down, down in the earlier rounds. Sugar, we're going down swinging. Oh, man. It's a good song. But yeah, back to the man in question here. But yeah, I agree with you with Levis. Hopefully he can kind of bounce back. But Rodgers, his options are, like I said, when he was traded to the Jets, I think there could have been 10 to 12 teams that would have been willing to make that trade with the Packers for Aaron. Fast forward to now, 2 years later, and I think there is a significant smaller list of teams that are willing to do that. Not only because of, one, Rodgers' injury history, his age. The guy is on the wrong side of 40, which is in the NFL, anytime you are near 40 is on the wrong side of 40. And also he's had a down year considering, his numbers for the most part, even though it, like Roger says, bad years for me are career years for other guys. Ha ha ha. Very true, but also doesn't change the fact that you've had a bad year, man. And on top of that, the other stuff surrounding Rodgers, the stuff outside of it, the inability to stay off of Pat McAfee, and either I don't want to say cause drama, because I feel like for the most part, Rodgers just kind of talks. For the most part, like he rarely says anything too out of bounds outside of Jimmy Kimmel and medical stuff. That stuff obviously is, that causes some drama, but I think for the most part his teammates don't really care. But the other stuff that usually is going to cause an issue is if when you're consistently doing that, when you're consistently on camera, consistently talking about the team, consistently just doing things that, you're going to be eventually a distraction. And I think certain teams are not willing to take that risk with Rodgers because the reward is no longer what it used to be. And that's true with any player. You look at any player that is incredibly talented, especially some of them that have off the field trouble, it almost seems like they're almost rewarded for doing some of that stuff. But then once that talent, or even if the talent was never there, that's when it's like, okay, now you're a bigger headache than you're worth, and we're gonna move on from you. As Stegosaurus, we are taking 40 million years asking for a friend. I mean, probably, man. It might be 50 million. Might be 50 million. But yeah. But yeah, Rodgers, like if you look at some of the teams that are going to be able to afford him, New England, they have a lot of money, but they also just drafted Drake May. He looked good in certain parts. Also, they're definitely not going to bring Rodgers in because I don't feel like he fits the mold that they want to build, even if as a backup. Las Vegas could take a swing on him for sure. I would not be surprised if he goes there. Tom Brady, obviously being a minority owner, will carry some influence to bring Rodgers in. I would not be surprised if number 12 tells number 8/12 to take a chance and go to Las Vegas. It would be hilarious to see Devontae Adams go there if he decides to go with Rodgers again. That'd be hilarious. Roger Adams is like, hey man, when I said I wanted to be traded, I was just kidding, man. I said JK at the end. You didn't hear me, man. Can I come back? But yeah, no. Las Vegas is definitely a landing spot for him. It'll be interesting to see what they want if Las Vegas does kind of choose to go that route. I don't know, man. I think if I'm Las Vegas, I would not do that. I would definitely try to go the traditional route and build through the draft. Obviously, after that, the next team would be Washington. They're not going to take a chance. Chargers, no. Chicago, no. Arizona, no. Minnesota, Detroit, Tennessee is the next team that would probably take a flyer on him that could afford him. And like I said, like AKF was talking about, it could happen. But I think if they do go that route, I think that's going to be the end of Will Levis's time there. I could see New York, but I mean, does Rodgers want to stay in East Rutherford again? He would know where to go. He would know where all the best spots to eat are. He would know the best parts of the locker room, the parts of the stadium. But yeah, I could see the Giants taking a flyer on him, especially with Dable kind of fighting for his job. It might be a risk that he might be willing to take, but I don't know. I think the Rodgers with the New York media, with all the lights and glamour, I think that has shown that it's not gonna work. And I think going to another New Jersey team that is not great is not going to change anything. And then finally, I think the best option for Aaron Rodgers is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin clearly likes and respects Rodgers. The feeling is mutual with Rodgers on the other side as well. I don't know what his relationship is with the owner of the Steelers. The Steelers have a solid offensive line. I think it's slightly better than the New York Jets. I think they have talented players on the boundary there. George Pickens is probably going to be almost as talented as Garrett there. It would be very hilarious to see. It would be very funny to see what happens with Rodgers if he does sign with New York, because they also have Mike Williams, and would Rodgers be willing to hug it out with Mike Williams and say, "Hey man, I know I got you traded last season, but water under the bridge, right, man? Right?" I think Mike actually might be on a 1-year contract. He might be gone actually, but yeah. So yeah, I think Rodgers, his best chances are going to be Las Vegas, Tennessee, and Pittsburgh, because Green Bay, Denver, the Rams, Jacksonville, Philly, Carolina, Baltimore, the Jets, and yeah, almost nobody else is going to be able to afford him. New Orleans is not going to be able to afford him. Cleveland is 34 million over the cap, but they could probably find a way around that. Seattle, 20 million over the cap. They might be able to find some room. But yeah, man, there isn't a whole lot of other options for him this season. So I know Roger says he wants to go to a contender, but his best chances are going to be with some teams where he's going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting outside of maybe Pittsburgh. So yeah, that is the opinion that I have on Aaron Rodgers. That's where I think he might go. I think his best chances with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but Tennessee and the Las Vegas Raiders are in the running if Rodgers decides to continue to play. All right. So that is kind of the free agency right there. Let me know what you think. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know. Especially with Rodgers, where do you think his best chance of landing it will be? Also, if I'm Rodgers, just sign with the Vikings, man. Just do a $1 contract, just for the memes. Just for the memes. It'd be hilarious. Come on, man. Do it for us. Do it for do it for us. All right. So, last 5 minutes here. Let's talk about some Super Bowl halftime shows very quickly. We'll speed run them. So, my I would say my top 3 Super Bowl halftime shows that the best ones. Just a lot of great acts that kind of went with that as well. Number 2, God, I'm gonna have to go with the Black Eyed Peas. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. That was a rough halftime show there. I think that was actually the Packers. The last time they won the Super Bowl, that was in 2010. That was that was a rough one. But yeah, no, like Bruno Mars, man, like that dude just has a great way of like showmanship. That's also one of the, like, when you're talking about a Super Bowl halftime show, you're never gonna get the full song. You're never gonna get the, I would say, the true, just like full extent of like a concert, because you have to be quick. You know, they have to get that stage out really quickly. You only have about 13 to 15 minutes to kind of start singing from beginning to end, and you got to go out quickly. So you gotta be able to be bombastic and perform for the camera, on top of being able to get some of your best singles that the crowd is gonna know, that can kind of dance to it, people at home as well. So I think that's so I think Bruno Mars did a phenomenal job of doing that as well. So that was a fun one. And I'm trying to think here, what was number 2? I know my number 1, and I won't say it now. Let's see here. Did I get the wrong one? I could have sworn. No, okay, there it is. My goodness. So I would say, once again, there's just the ones that I've seen so far. So I think the best one, the second best one, was honestly the Dr. Dre Snoop Dogg one that came out, what's, like 2 or 3 years ago. I think it might have been actually the last Kansas City Philadelphia game. That one was just. I remember that thing was blowing up, man. You had Mary J. Blige, you had Kendrick, Eminem. Like it was just. Also, you had 50 Cent in there as well. Um, yeah, dude. There was just as a person that grew up in the early 2000s slash like late 90s, kind of in that era where that was like the first time I was really like perceiving like, oh, I like this kind of music. Oh, I like this kind of artist or whatever. I remember being in middle school when 50 Cent was like at his height, and that was just a if you listened to 50 Cent at the time, man, you were cool. 21 Questions, In the Club, all that stuff, and then just the surprise every single time somebody was coming out, man. Everybody just lost their mind. The people that I was hanging out with at the time, watching the game, it was just great. It hit on everything you wanted for a halftime show. It was surprising. It was great set pieces. There was like that weird like in a row sections, and they even got 50 Cent upside down to and you could tell, man. You could tell. I was like, hold on, hey, somebody better be holding on to 50, man, because that he might drop. He's a little older, a little heavier set than he was. But yeah, that was just a great one. That's my opinion. And then finally, the best one I remember seeing. This was the first one that I remember watching live, and like was just, I knew I was watching something great, and it shouldn't become as a surprise. But that is Prince from 2000 and was it 6? That was the Colts and Chicago Bears Super Bowl. Yeah, man, that Super Bowl halftime show by Prince was something special, man. It was raining. It did not matter, man. Prince was going off on that guitar. And of course, Purple Rain, when he hit that, whoo, woo, once Purple Rain hurt, man, that was a perfect bow to that Super Bowl halftime show, man. Couldn't have gotten it any better. Yeah, Prince rocked it. That was the best one that I've ever seen. Let me know in the Bears, and also the fact that the Bears lost that Super Bowl too was just perfect. But yeah, man, Prince is my number one. I think it's considered. I do believe. I think it's considered one of the greatest. It's up there with Michael Jackson. Performance from like the early 90s, I think. It's yeah, man, Prince, he did it right, man. He killed it. Spectacle, great music, and on top of that, the rain, when it was the rain was going down, the purple lights came on, Purple Rain. It was just, you couldn't have planned it any better if you could. And yeah, man, Prince rocked it out, and that's if you haven't gotten a chance to see that one, I'm pretty sure most people have, but if you haven't, check it out, man. It's one of the best halftime shows. And I remember, like, I was watching that game. I was like, oh man, hopefully Peyton Manning can beat the Bears. By the end of that halftime show, I was like, do we need to play the second half? Like, cause like the call, it's like, can we get a couple more minutes of Prince? Just a little bit more. Can we get the extended version of Purple Rain? But yeah, man. So that's my top 3 right there. I just wanted to give you guys a little taste. I didn't want to do a whole, top 10 breakdown. Because to be honest with you, I've probably only watched about like 10 to 15 halftime shows, so I'm not going to pretend to be a historian. I know the first couple were like basically just local marching bands from like the surrounding area, which is hilarious and also just awesome. I wish they would go back to that one time. Like, even if they did, like, Kendrick Lamar, how hilarious would it be to have, like, a local college big band just kind of off to the side doing some stuff that went in line with the beat of the song? I'm just saying, man, it should be there. You should never lose your roots, all right? Come on, NFL. What, you're too big now for a local college band? Come on. But yeah. But yeah, let me know in the comments or in the chat, actually. Let me know what your favorite halftime show is or was, I should say. Maybe you got a new one this year. I don't know. Actually, this year, I think Kendrick was good. I was hoping he would play some of his older stuff. just for some of the fans that like have been with him for a while. I understand why, because I think some of his newer stuff plays better in a stadium. But I'd be lying if I did not. I mean, you probably saw the reaction of me kind of bopping my head and smiling every couple minutes. I have a good time, man. I can never have a bad time listening to Kendrick Lamar. David, Metallica played with the San Fran Symphony for their SM album, and its awesome logistics would be a nightmare for a halftime show. Ooh, I mean, yeah, I think that's why. Obviously, you got to keep it simple. You got to keep it with one theme. But man, I'm like, man, come on, NFL. You got the money. You got the resources. Make it happen. Merge the old NFL Super Bowl with the new. Come on. Just do it one time. Let's see if it works. But yeah, dude, I can only imagine Metallica with the San Fran Symphony. I'm gonna have to look that up. I'm actually gonna write that down. But that's hilarious. All right. But yeah, man, I think that is gonna be it for tonight, man. But but David, who was your number one halftime show? And AKF, if you're still there, my dude, let me know who was your number one halftime show as well. First two or three tracks are my type. Hype music for drives to Thanksgiving football with family. There we go. Hey man, Thanksgiving, especially with the food, the football, man. You gotta get the blood flowing, man. You gotta get going. Ooh. So yeah, but yeah, dude, I gotta to be honest with you, man. I gotta listen to more rock. Like there's definitely some rock that I listen to. One of my favorite songs, actually, let me is by Bad Religion, and it's my goodness. I just want to make sure I get the song name correct. It's actually off of their New Maps of Hell from 2007. It is the New Dark Ages. It's one of my favorite songs, man. Just so good, man. It starts out quick, and it just does not stop. Yeah, so yeah. Anytime I want to get up and like, especially in the morning, man, when I knew I gotta kind of hit the ground running, I put that on as my alarm to kind of wake me up. All right, man. But all right, guys. I think that's gonna be it for me tonight, man. Thank you so much, for David, AKF, for bouncing in here, man. Especially on a Friday night, man. On Valentine's Day. I love you guys. I love you. No, but no, but yeah, man. If you guys haven't been told, I love you. Thank you so much, man. I hope you guys Friday is was phenomenal. I hope your weekend is going to be going great, man. If you're in the northern parts of kind of like the Midwest, stay warm, stay safe, man. It's we've been getting a lot of snow here in Wisconsin the last couple of weeks. Sorry, the last couple of days, and yeah, man. There's just been some some wild people that don't know how to drive during the snow. So please be careful and trust me, man. If you gotta drive slower, man. Get there safe. Doesn't matter if you're late. But yeah, man. I just want to say thank you once again. And I will catch you guys next Friday for another Q&A. Trying to see if so there might be another video. I might be dropping some of the Super Bowl stream. I'm gonna chop it up and try to post some of that stuff up, just like some of the reactions to the interception, some big plays, things like that, just to kind of keep the content kind of flowing. And then after that, I'm trying to get out some of that film breakdown by the end of this month. Hopefully, actually should be somewhere in the final week of February. So look out for that as well. And yeah, man, by that time we're gonna be in March. We're gonna be getting closer and closer to the NFL draft. And by that time we'll have the combine. We'll have the Senior Bowl free agency. Man, it's the NFL. Even though there's an off season, it does not stop. It has about 2 or 3 weeks when there's nothing really going on, but then it just starts to ramp up again. So yeah, it's gonna be coming in fast, man, and we're gonna be this channel is gonna be keeping it going, man. We're gonna learn a lot. We're gonna keep trying to pump out as much as we can, and we're gonna learn. We're gonna learn along the way, and we're gonna get better, man. So hopefully you're along for the ride. And once again, thank you so much. But yeah, I will catch you guys later. Once again, my name is Dave. Have a great night, guys. Thank you so much.